All right, I should be live. Let's see. Okay, it looks like I'm streaming. Hey, what's up, guys? There's only one person watching. Probably that person is me. That's fine. Don't worry, I did not give anyone any sort of like notice that I was going to go live. I just wanted to play a little bit around with the new version of Cinema r22, I guess it is, which I've downloaded. I have a trial and I'm currently getting used to. There are some improvements which I would like to take deeper looks at in the future, because for now I'm having some issues with Corona. Corona, unfortunately, in the viewport, I'm not able to see the materials. I'm not able to see the geometry. And so modeling around and rendering with Corona at the moment is a little bit difficult. I have to go manually and have to change the display color of each single geometry so that I can see the geometry. But anyway, the artwork that I did is this one. Let me see if I can pull it up. There we go. And so for this artwork, I've used Cinema 4D, Corona, of course, a couple of plugins which you can download from Merck Wilson website. Then I've used DAZ 3D for the person. It's a very simple software to use. So let's just get started and see how I made this. So I'm going to start from a brand new project, drop a plane just to have a sort of like a reference. Gonna drop a torus, make this torus a lot bigger, maybe make it larger. And I'm going to drop the torus to the floor with this plugin which I use, which is called Drop the Floor. Great. Now I'm gonna make this torus editable by clicking the make editable button. And then I'm going to select all faces. I'm gonna go into select and say set selection. Now the set selection tag, or the selection tag, whatever it's called, since I think R19 or maybe R20, I'm not sure, can use the fields in order to define the selection that we want to have on our geometry. For those of you who don't know, the fields are these fantastic add-ons that can be used to control geometry in Cinema 4D. You can do crazy things. And so all I have to do in order for me to, for instance, randomize this selection is to go inside the selection tag, click use fields, and then go and look for a random field. Now the random field is by default mixed in max mode. That means that it will maximize what's already selected below. To change that, I will have to make this normal. If I now double click the selection again, you'll see that the selection has been randomized. Now I can go and change the seed of this selection. Of course, I have to double click the selection tag to make it visible. And what this does, it allows me to randomly select these polygons, which I then can extrude with empty and check preserve groups. There we go, so I can create some random extrusions. With this still selected, I can right click and say subdivide, so to create some random subdivisions. I can go double click on the tag, change maybe the seed one more time, double click again, and have another selection which I can then MW inset empty to extrude and create some random geometry. Now, as you can see, I'm not keeping a lot of control on this geometry. I don't really care because this is going to be not really visible in high quality or in high resolution. Sorry, that's what I meant. I'm gonna turn this geometry 90 degrees. Going to drop a couple of boxes inside my viewport to create some cats. There we go. Gonna duplicate these boxes, maybe make 3. Gonna take these 3 boxes, C for convert, to edit it to polygons, connect objects and delete. And then I can get rid of this random field. I don't need it anymore. I can put everything inside a Boolean. Now I can create a subtraction. The order is wrong. Let me just substitute that. There we go. And now I have 3 pieces of geometry which are separated. As you can see here, we have some errors, and that's because maybe the boxes might be a little bit too small. Not a problem. Let's select the geometry and let's move it a little bit. There we go. I'll do the same with this element down here and this element down there. Maybe a little bit more. It's okay that we have this stuff, these artifacts. It's okay because I'm going to delete it later. C to convert my Boolean operation so that I have the 2 objects selected. Actually, if I go back into my Boolean, I can click the create single object option, and this eventually will clean up also some of the artifacts. Now I can I can click C on the Boolean to convert my geometry. Can get rid of the edge selection tag and also of the object polygonal selection object. I'm gonna go around and clean up a little bit my geometry so that with the right click close polygon hole, I can go around and close the open geometry. Now here you have to play a little bit around because the geometry might not be clean, and Cinema doesn't know which kind of hole it has to close. That's not a big deal. You just have to play around a little bit, trying to find the bigger geometry that you can create. There you go. Now I know that some of you might be looking at this and be like, oh my god, that topology is cancer. Yeah, I agree. But this is not a beauty context, okay? Where is my geometry? Okay, let's close this hole. Let's see if I can find a big chunk of geometry. This might be a little bit more complicated, it doesn't matter. Let's try here. No luck. Okay, it doesn't matter. We're going to play a little bit with this geometry anyway. So I'm gonna go to Polygons mode, double click on the upper part of the geometry. Okay, it doesn't select it. UW. I'm gonna move this a little bit forward and maybe rotate it a little bit. I'll do the same with this part of the geometry. Move it back a little bit, rotate it a little bit. Maybe I'll do the same with that geometry, maybe with this geometry too. Great. So now I have my main element. Now I can simply rotate it a little bit, maybe 20 degrees. Drop it to the ground. I'm gonna make it sink a little bit inside the ground. I'm gonna make a couple of copies of this geometry a little bit randomized, maybe scale down, maybe one more copy like this, turn it a little bit more, maybe I'll make another copy, and actually, yeah, let's use this one to create the rays that are then going to shoot through this gigantic, whatever you want to call it, spaceship or whatever. So I'm just gonna select a random number of polygons across the surface. Maybe I'm going to try and avoid selecting overlapping geometry, although this might be a little bit of a risky task. And then I'm gonna extrude this straight in that direction. There we go. Now the only thing that I need to do is to kind of find a right camera angle. Maybe this whole thing is still too big. I'm gonna scale it down, yes, and then move it up, and then scale it down this way. Now I want to make sure that I'm sitting on the ground with my camera. Let's click on the camera tab. So my camera at the moment is at 7 meters from the ground. That's too much. I'm gonna make it 160, and I want it to be straight, and so I'm going to reset the rotation in the P value to 0, and then I'm going to shift by using the film offset in the Y value upward. Don't be afraid to use an extreme value. It doesn't really matter in this case. I'm going to go with I don't know, 40. I feel like the scale of this artwork, it's a lot bigger than the one that I've done here, but it's fine. That's you know, that's what you get when doing this kind of stuff. I'm gonna move this ray of light a little bit up, and then I'm going to make another couple of copies of these elements, maybe move them a little bit more far away, and then maybe make another copy. And so really I'm just using one object replicated over and over, right? Now, in order for me to fill this part of the screen, I'm going to simply create some extrusions. There we go. Let's try and use some useful geometry. It's not that useful, but it's okay. Then I'm going to select this geometry that I've extruded. I'm going to say uncheck only select visible elements, because I want to select also what's in the back. Right click and say split. Then I'm going to delete the geometry that I've extruded, so that this one is a solo element. You are to invert the geometry. Then I'm going to center my gizmo onto this geometry, and then I'm going to use this extension called TopoWire from Merck. Take this torus and make it a child of that TopoWire extension, and this will create the wires that you can see in this rendering. Let me just change the transform. The directionality should be, let's see, curvature down. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. This I can leave it the way it is. Objects, point count, maybe I'll do 50. Change the seed so that it looks sort of like more homogeneous, and then I'm going to generate a thickness, so that will create the pipes. And I'm also going to say in the object, please return the hierarchy so that I can see the actual trusses that I've created. Now, in the type of curve that I want to generate, I'm going to change the intermediate point from natural to adaptive so that they have a little bit more of a natural curvature. I feel like this artwork is a little bit naked. It could be a little bit there we go. Just add a couple more of elements. Then I'm gonna create a corona material. Gonna change the diffuse to completely black. Switch on the reflections and give it a value IOR of 22. That will make it a metal. I'm gonna make it very glossy, something like 0.65%. And I'm gonna start assigning this material to all the geometry that it's visible here. There we go. And there we go. Then I'm going to create, hold on, I still have one element down there, which eventually I could make of a different color also. Let's make this sort of like more of a gold. Orangey gold. There we go. Good. So now I'm going to create a light. I'm gonna call this light. Gonna switch on the self-illumination, change the multiplier to something like 5. I'm gonna switch on the opacity, make the opacity with a checkerboard. And so what this does will create holes into my light. Now I'm just gonna change the frequency so that I'm gonna have stripes. And so if I map these on the light, it's going to look like if I had some beams of light. I'm gonna change the color to something like a bluish color. I'll do the same also in the diffuse. There we go. And then I'm going to apply this to my light. Now here's the problem, is that I cannot really see how this is mapped, so I will have to do a quick test render to see what is happening. Oops, no V-ray corona. Let me also change the UV mapping to something like flat. There we go. And then I'm going to say right click, fit to object. Maybe if I turn this like this, T to scale it up a little bit. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I think that this is in the wrong direction. Yes, it is. Let me turn it 90 degrees and then again fit to object. And if I now render this, yes, you can see that the light it has this direction here. I've noticed the performance of Corona slowing down quite a bit on the new version of Cinema for the r22, and I don't know if this has anything to do with the, I don't know, I have no idea why that is the case. But anyway, just a heads up, there are some things that don't work the way they're supposed to in r22. There are some minor bugs and some things that are not at production level yet. Okay, good. So I have this geometry set up. Now, one thing that I want to do, I want to create some irregularities over this plane. So I'm going to drop a landscape object inside my viewport. Whoops, landscape. I'm going to scale it up. Go back to my camera. Okay, so this is looking good. Maybe I'll make it a little bit more flat, and maybe I'll do some copies. Let me see where my camera is at. Maybe I need to lower this a little bit. Great. Let me grab these three and group them together so that this can be part of the landscape. I'm going to create a rough material for the landscape using sort of like a dirt. Nope. And then I'm gonna drop this dirt inside my displacement. Switch on the displacement. As of now, the displacement is at 10 centimeters. That's a little bit too much. I'm gonna make it 2. Then I'm gonna drop this inside the reflection as well. I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of white and make it very glossy. Good. And then I'm gonna drop this whole material onto the landscape, map it to something like cylindrical. Maybe scale it up a little bit. You're not gonna be able to see it in a detailed way, but it's going to help adding a little bit of detail to the and texture to the whole image. So let me render again just to see where we are at. I'm also going to switch on the blooming glare, change the bloom intensity to something like 3, glare intensity 3. Okay, so I haven't framed exactly the image the way I did it with the artwork that I posted here, but that's fine, you don't have to worry about that. And also one thing that I've done, I've put another beam of light inside, and this is a very simple thing to do. Basically all I have to do is take this geometry. You see, it's so annoying. Now I can only see the geometry. It's black, and that's all. I cannot see the difference. So I'm gonna hit the T key, click on Control to make a copy so that I can make a copy of the geometry. Let me solo it to see if it's there. Yes, it is. And now I'm gonna make a copy of this light material and simply make this an orange color. Whoops. Gonna take the diffuse and copy it into the self-illumination. So now you can tell that it's really orange. And another thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to put a Fresnel to kind of give to kind of like enhance that sort of like glowing feeling to it. So I'm just gonna say a Fresnel, right click, invert gradient. I go back and I'll mix this in multiply mode, and then I'm going to copy this into the self-illumination tab, do the same thing, multiply. And now you see what I was talking about. Now you have more of a glowy center and a darker edge. So I'm just gonna say copy shader, and I'll put this inside the blue light in both the diffuse and the self-illumination. And I'm gonna change the mode to multiply. There we go. So now I'm gonna simply apply the light to the internal tube. I haven't even checked any of your use interactive rendering when viewport and texturing. Yeah, you see, the problem is that my computer, it's not really a high performance one. And so it's a little bit difficult for me to use the interactive viewport. it actually slowed down the performance of my machine. My machine, it's very old. It's almost 6 years old, and so I will have to get a new one pretty soon. But hi guys, how are you? So let me render this again. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, this is good enough. I'm happy with this. I'm just gonna stop it. Next, I'm going to put a person inside my viewport. To make the person, I'm gonna go to DAZ 3D. DAZ is this free application that you can download, and there are a lot of presets. Okay, I don't need anything. I'm just gonna go into Genesis 3, double click on the Genesis 3 male. This will take a second. There you go. And then I have this dude. And then inside of the Genesis, I'm going to look for a pose, something that it's, I don't know, a nice pose, I guess this one. There we go. Yeah, that's good enough. The guy's naked, but it's okay. And I'm going to export this as a person. Use the OBJ file format. I accept, blah, blah, blah. We'll copy the maps and everything. Then I'm gonna go back to my Cinema 4D. I'm just gonna open a new project, file, merge project, and use the person OBJ. Okay. And by default, this person, it's tiny. Look how small that is. Okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna scale it up a bunch of times. And then I'm gonna create a corona material, make it dark with some reflections, very glossy. Then I'm gonna select all of these elements, and there should be, wait, edit, edit, select material tags objects, and then I can simply replace this material by doing this. Good. So now I have the person as the material, the other materials I can delete them. Edit, copy. I go back to my project, edit, paste. Now let me solo this guy because I don't know how big he is. Let me turn it around, and maybe I'll just, I don't know, put it a little bit backward, make sure that his feet are on top of the mountain. There we go. And let's render and let's see what happens. But anyway, sorry for not saying hi, Matteo. Hi, Vlad. Hi, Aliosa. Hi, Imran. How are you guys? Everything okay? And that's it. Now you let it render. And eventually you're going to be left with something like this. Now this is a bigger rendering, and probably I've chosen a different type of camera angle. The rays that you see, they shoot completely through the image. If you haven't noticed it, I love using like diagonal lines in my artwork. And one thing that we could do, we could change maybe a little bit the contrast in this image to make the darker darker and the brighters brighters. Maybe play a little bit with the filmic shadow. Let's try what a value of 1 does. And so you can have these very contrasty shadows. You could do the same with the highlights. The highlights, they get dimmed basically when you use a very high value. Usually I like to keep them super, super bright. And then you can play with the bloom intensity to exaggerate sort of like, you know, the light shining. Whoops, there we go. And basically that's it. I know that there are not a lot of people watching, and so I do not expect to have a lot of questions from this, but this is one of the reasons why I love working with Cinema 4D, because it's so fun to quickly model with, you know, the geometries that are already there, and with all the transformers and all these new fields and modifiers that have been added over the years. It's just a fun tool for me to use. But anyway, I don't know if you guys have any questions. I guess you don't. 30 minutes already. I just wanted to hang out a little bit. I'm happy that you came to see me and to talk to me. And later on, I'm going to have a project discussion with the guys from the digital fashion competition that we have organized last week. There is currently another competition going on. It's the Together We Stand, which I hope that you decide to take part in, because it's a very good way for you guys as artists to have your voice heard against, you know, oppression and for human rights. And that's all. All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I'm going to stop the stream. Bye-bye.